Aloha, y'all, and welcome to the deepest dive. Just kidding. I'm just gonna start that again because this is not the deepest dive. Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Max Spoilers on Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, or Yakuza 8? Ichiban and Kiryu's big adventure. We are going to be talking about the whole story and a lot of the side stuff. I think we are going to be spoiling the whole game, and so if you are done with the game, or if you're not interested in playing it and want to hear what happens in the story, stick around. If you're still playing it, come back later, because we are going to spoil it, and we'll be here when you get back. Before we start, I just want to remind everyone watching on YouTube, maybe, that you can listen to this on an audio podcast feed if you are a $5 supporter of MinnMax. You get the whole kind of bonus pod feed if you subscribe to that, including the deepest dive on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which will be starting this weekend. You can also contribute your thoughts. Those are going to be hours and hours and hours long, and I cannot imagine not having access to them on a podcast. So I think that is something you'll want to do. But we're here to talk about Infinite Wealth. I am joined by MinnMax cohort Kelsey Lewin.
That's me. Aloha.
And MinnMax cohort Kyle Hilliard.
Aloha, Jacob. You are doing such a good job hosting. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey,
Kelsey, thank you for waking up early.
Yeah. I got my coffee. It's great. Plus, it's probably... Oh, no, I think it's really late in Hawaii, actually. I think it's like 3 in the morning or something.
I do like that we have 3 different time zones on this podcast. It feels, it feels a little like we're in the Infinite Wealth, like planet hopping sort of world.
Yeah. You're Ichiban. We're Ichiban calling Kiryu to let him know something happened.
That's right.
It's in the middle of the night or whatever.
I'm Kiryu holding a phone like I've never seen a phone before, which is how
he's old. Leave him alone.
So I feel like before we start, I just want to, I guess, set how much we've each played of this game, and maybe our history with the series, which I think for all of us is maybe not that much. I played 55 hours of this game. I beat the main story. I did pretty much all the sub stories, or I did a lot of the sub stories, but I did not spend a lot of time in the more involved Sujimon and Dondoko Island minigame. So that is something that I'm totally missing. This is my 4th Yakuza game. I played 3 of them last year, Like a Dragon, Ishin, and The Man Who Erased His Name. But I don't have full context history on Yakuza 0 through 6, which I recognize is pretty important to parts of this game.
Yeah, I am not much different, although I've played a little bit more of the mainline stuff. I guess I should start by saying I think my final clear time was about 85 hours, maybe 90 in this game. I forgot to look. I did do all of the sub-stories, except there was, in the trailer, there was one where you fight a shark, and I think I missed that. I don't know how. With just Kiryu and Ichiban, that was in the trailer. And
I was like, how did you skip the shark?
No, the final shark I got, but there was I don't know how I missed that. I really thought I was being extremely careful. So, yeah, I assume that was a thing. But otherwise, I think I did every sub story. I did all of Kiryu's memory stuff, life links, all of that. I have played Yakuza 1, or Kiwami, I guess. I have started 2 and never finished it. And I've played all of 7. I played Man Who Erased His Name, or Gaiden. And I think it was 5 that I also started, but never got very far in. So,
what a weird one to just I'll jump in at 5.
Yeah, it was and I think that's why I never got very far. So I would say really just 1 7 Gaiden in this one would be my actual. That's what I consider myself to have played.
Right. Yeah, I'm Gaiden, and I watched my wife play a lot of 7. That was basically my reference. I was so interested in Infinite Wealth after watching so much of 7 that I was like, well, if I play Gaiden, I will at least get a taste of Kiryu to kind of set me up. And I think it did. But yeah, there was still a lot of stuff in, those Japan chapters that I was kind of like, I don't know what this is in reference to, but it seems important to Kiryu. So,
and Kyle, you said, correct me if I'm wrong, that this is our 7 was like your wife's favorite game, or
yeah, she has said that occasionally. She'll be like, I think 7's my favorite game of all time. Yeah, she loves it. She it's so funny because she loves 7 so much, and I was like, there's like 7 other Yakuza games you could play, and her response is always like, I like Ichiban. I don't care about anybody else. I just want to hang out with Ichiban. And I was like, all right, fair.
This is I think Kelsey and I talked about our partners' reactions to this game on the podcast as well. But like when I finished playing this, I mean my partner was like glued to the screen, and she has played, it's like she's played Disco Elysium, she's played kind of other games, and she was like, Ichiban is my favorite character that has ever been in any video game. Like, she just kind of made that declaration. Like, I like this guy more than I've liked any other video game character.
I mean, that's a fair reaction, especially after playing Infinite Wealth now. Like, yeah. I get it. And I would be hard pressed to like come up with major competition. And in terms of like fully realized characters, like I certainly have video game characters that I love, but like they're from a different era. Like, I love Link, but like he's not really a person,
Yeah, or like GLaDOS.
The point of Link is that he's not like a person, right?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that was a bad example, but yeah. So many video game characters are meant to be sort of a representation of you, where I feel like Ichiban is a person I could go meet and hang out with, and he would just make me feel really good about myself after our meeting. I'd be like, wow, what a great guy. He really cares about me.
So with a game this enormous, it's really hard to know how to go about like talking about spoilers for this game. So I guess do people want to talk about maybe like a favorite moment, or like something that stands out as like here's where I really like started. Well, here's a bigger question. Did you like this when you finished it? Were you like, good game?
Yeah, so this is going to be kind of controversial, I think, because this was, I think, one of my favorite games I've ever played in a while, for like the first 9 chapters or so. Like, just absolutely in love with it. I love all of the party characters are fantastic. Like, especially the new ones, Tomizawa, Chitose, especially amazing characters. The ending disappointed me, and I think it is because of how good the rest of the game was. And the ending was a very, I don't know, just a very kind of okay ending. And it really ended up like, I wish I was coming on this like just so stoked about it, as stoked as I was playing through like the vast majority of this game. And by the end I was like, okay, like absolutely loved 90% of it, and then the last, I don't know, then it just kind of started falling off a little bit. I don't know if anyone else agrees with that.
I think that's a great opinion, I guess I could say, that I agree with, because it's not like they
thanks.
It's not like they botched it and I walked away from that game like, oh, that ending sucked and like I can't believe that's what happened. It was more kind of like, oh yeah, I guess it just kind of concluded, the bad guys were defeated. And I like, there's like a twist around chapter 10, which I don't know if we want to dive into that yet, that I found very engaging and was maybe the moment in the main story that I was the most like, whoa, I can't believe that's happening. And then by the end I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, we're done. It's sort of how I felt.
Yeah, I think there is this level of like, oh my gosh, this game, it's putting so many different like threads out there. We have so much going on. How are they going to tie it all together? And the answer is like, they kind of don't, like if you start thinking about, and this is a thing that this game can pull because it is so long and you do so many things, is like when you start thinking about plot events in this game, you can kind of be like, oh yeah, that happened, and then no one ever talked about it again. And like that happens constantly, including with some things that like really feel like they should affect the story. And so I think I am with y'all in that, like, I end this game caring as much about the characters as I ever have, I can't wait to see what they do next. You know, like nothing has soured me on playing another game in this series. But they did maybe lose their grip a little. And like for all the things that it seems like this game was attempting to tackle, maybe it's not able to all kind of like bring them together in the most satisfying way at the end.
Yeah, because I feel like Abina, right, is like ultimately the big bad. And I feel like he becomes the big bad in like the last 6 hours, and his relationship to Ichiban is kind of like just sort of tossed out into the ether, you know, as like, and by the way, they're probably related, right? Is kind of where it is. It's like they're brothers. And it's like, okay, I guess that's something. And then,
which, by the way, this is, I think that he must have been created after 7, because he's not referenced in 7. Like, there's not even like a hint that Ichiban could have a brother. That's not, you know, and you would think with, you know, Arakawa being like having this kind of complicated relationship triangle thing where he has a woman that he actually loved and a woman he's like supposed to marry, that it would come up that he's like been intimate with her and there's a chance out there, right? Like,
yeah,
we're never even told that this like person he was supposed to marry, which was Ebina's mom, like that they ever had any kind of like real relationship. But I mean, I might have just kind of missed it, but I think if it was talked about, it was like very quick.
Yeah. I think you were totally right in that. And also it's like, because of the split storyline, it's like Ichiban never even gets to talk to him about it.
Yeah, that's the
you know,
other thing.
it's like, well, Kiryu wraps up that plot line, so like we don't get to find out how Ichiban feels about like maybe having a brother.
Yeah, and I also and it's probably an issue of me not playing the other Yakuza games, but sort of the politics of the Yakuza clans, like the Siryu clan and you know all that stuff, like kind of washes over me. And I'm much more engaged with like the personal things and how friends might have betrayed friends and, you know, how Ichiban is so willing to forgive anybody for anything. Ultimately, it really doesn't matter what you do to Ichiban. He's still going to love you. Like that stuff is more interesting. But when it gets into like the stuff that the VTuber was talking about, I was kind of like, I wouldn't be watching this channel myself, you know? But who the VTuber is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like that stuff I like.
Yeah, I think, you know, like it's interesting that 7 took this really big swing of like there is a chapter in Like a Dragon called The End of the Yakuza. And like what that chapter is, as they talk about a lot in this game, is like the major clans decide to disband. And that is like a seismic event in the universe of this series. And it seems like they are half really committed to kind of playing that out. And I think the best stuff in this game is talking about like how hard criminal rehabilitation is. You know, like these things where it's like clearly the writers care a lot about talking about like former felons reintegrating into society in a way that feels really interesting. But also, it made me feel so married to the structure of a Yakuza game that it's like, well, we gotta have the Yakuza, and so then they just kind of like put together another clan.
They went through the trouble of changing the name, but still want to get Yakuza.
Yeah.
You know?
It really feels like there's some, and I have no insight into this, but it really feels like there's like someone or some group of people inside the studio that like have a super strong vision for a story, and then like someone comes in and is like, we have to make more games, so I have to change this part. And those parts are like the things that would be the most impactful story-wise, you know what I mean? Like Kiryu can't actually die, guys. Like I know we can allude to it 4 times.
The third game where it feels like Kiryu should die at the end.
Oh my gosh.
There was this Halo like documentary many years ago that was like, you know, promotional stuff that was like on the Halo 3 Collector's Edition that I always think of in these moments, where like the level designers or the artists were like, we made this beautiful level, this alien planet. It looks so amazing. And they're like, and then these freaking designers come in and they got to put boxes everywhere for you to hide behind during combat scenarios. And that's kind of what it feels like. It's like, we made this beautiful story about, you know, rehabilitating criminals. And then like you say, like people come in and they're like, well, yeah, but we got to put these boxes here to make sure that we have more stuff in the future. And it's still technically a crime boss game.
Yeah. All right, I want to like start a little further back, because I think we're coming out of the gate because I think, we all finished this game semi-recently. It's like we're kind of coming out of the gate with the complaints that are at the end. But, like, this game is really, really good. I think we all still really enjoyed it,
sure.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the opening was, I thought, really, really fun. Just having, and this is actually what convinced me to tell Haley McLean that she needs to go back and play 7 before she plays this, because Ichiban starts off this game already a hero. Like, everyone loves him. He is already he's already been a hero. The world is happy, and it's kind of nice to see a video game, like, I don't know, not just like forget the events of the previous game and be like, no, this is just a regular guy, who cares. And he is just grinding away trying to help rehabilitate ex-Yakuza people. And it's a really, I don't know, I thought that was a really strong start to the game to be, to just like reintroduce him in this way. And then obviously he goes on a really fantastic
he gets canceled
date.
And he goes to Hawaii. And yeah, but I think it is one of the like electric things about Ichiban where like people even at the beginning are kind of telling him what you are trying to do is impossible. That there were 35,000 people in the Yakuza, and you are spending like a full day trying to get one of them a job, and you think you're going to be able to do this for everyone. And he's like, you gotta try. Like, I promised my late father that I would do this, and like, this is what I'm going to try to do, even if it's impossible. And that kind of like, the unwillingness of him to ever acknowledge how impossible the thing that he is attempting to do is one of the most compelling things about his character.
Yeah. I mean, that whole beginning is so strong, because even the how do you say her name? Seiko or Psycho? It must be Seiko, right?
I think
like
it's Psycho.
Is it okay? The date and everything, and like the wedding proposal, like all that stuff, I was just so charmed by. And I didn't really have the background for those characters, but I think the game did a good job of like putting you in the middle of all their relationships and like, okay, these guys are good friends. He really has this like, he really loves this woman and he has a powerful crush on her, and she kind of doesn't know what to do with that. And I was just really like charmed by that whole sequence and found it really funny too that she just kept walking off because she didn't know how to react. The
game is consistently so much like smarter in its comedy than I expected it to be, and this was a great early scene for that, where like he proposes and he has, I just think, it's like, it's a proposal full of cliches where he's like, I'll provide for you, like, I'll do the work, you can have, like this easy life that you want. And then for the next mission to be, you have to go and hang out with Adachi and Nanba. And you're like, okay, I said that I would provide for you. And they're like, oh, you idiot. Women, like, they want to feel empowered. They don't want to feel like...
Like, she's a business owner. Like, like, she's literally a successful business owner.
Yeah, I think it's like... And just consistently being able to pull off stuff like that, where you might think something, and then a character is going to vocalize the thing that you thought in, like, so much funnier a way than you would have even put it.
And then to follow up on that, like 30 hours later, where like I had all these drink link opportunities with Kiryu, but like she was the only one I was genuinely like super interested in. Like anytime a drink link popped up for her, just to hear her side of things and like hear Kiryu try to be like, so what happened with you guys, was like so great. That was like the big, like, of all the mysteries in the game, where's Ichiban's mom? Who's this girl? I was so much more interested in like, what's going on with them? Like, are they going to get married? Why did you say no? Like that could have been the main story for all I cared.
Yeah, that being said, all of the drink links are really fun. I ended up maxing out almost all of them. One of my favorite ones was with Zhao, who is not a crime boss anymore and instead just really cares about his restaurant. And his whole drink link is about how someone has given him a bunch of bad reviews and like his former boys want to beat the guy up. And he's like, no, you can't beat them up. Part of owning a restaurant is dealing with bad reviews. And then like the kind of finale of that story is you go to his restaurant. The bad review guy shows up. You have to beat up a bunch of Zhao's friends to stop them from beating up the critic. And then the critic's like, the food was so good, I got scared. And I was scared to write about how much I loved it. And so I lashed out and had to write that I didn't like it. And it's like the whole kind of like moral universe of this game is like everyone is at heart a beautiful person. And it's just because of like fear that they can't be the person they want to be.
I did like
how Ichiban sees the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the drink links were really good. I think they kind of always have been, but I really enjoyed all of them. It's also how you get like the best weapon for everybody. You get like a good weapon for all of them for maxing out the drink links, and then you can use that good weapon to create like the best weapon. Or I don't know, maybe there's an even better weapon in New Game Plus, but
yeah.
We should probably talk about that, by the way. It is maybe not the time for it, but they're charging for New Game Plus. That's not cool.
It's weird. I mean, I have no desire to play through this 60-hour game again right now, but like it does suck, and the idea that they have it and they're just like $10, please, not cool.
Yeah. In general, though, combat in this game was really good and like definitely improved upon from 7. Just kind of being able to move around more and use your environment more. I thought it felt really good. Like there was basically, I don't think there was a single time in the game where I was like just annoyed with fighting. It managed to stay fresh enough, especially with the job changes and stuff, and getting new types of skills and new like I don't know, by the end, I think I had turned everybody into, like, you have at least one move that can do, can exploit some weakness, which was just so useful by the end of the game.
Was I playing wrong in that I never changed jobs?
Never?
Never.
Yes.
I was like, I didn't.
Kyle,
yes,
you were playing wrong.
Because I was leveling up each job. I was like, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to spend any time not leveling up this job that I'm enjoying and is being effective for me.
The amount of XP that it takes to level up jobs like increases exponentially. So when you pick a new job, the first battle that you do, you will gain like 20 levels in it.
Yeah.
Like by the end of the game, you can get, it's like by the end you're just getting kind of like minor stat boosts. So I mean, you're fine, but like the new jobs are really fun. Like my Ichiban was like a gunslinger, and it's like by the end of the game, all the stuff that he could do was so cool. And then I had Tomizawa as like a samurai who was, constantly doing stuff. I didn't find out what the skill inheritance thing meant until like the very end, because I just didn't click that button. And that is so powerful.
Well, I mean, that's basically what I was doing. Was I had several characters where I leveled them to like just enough with a couple different jobs to just give them something that I felt they were missing. I felt like the chef job was really good for that. Like it gives you some knife and some fire and just stuff that people might not automatically earn through their regular job. Kyle, I will say though, I think that like the exclusive job to each character is sort of like the canonical one and the good one that you should keep. So by the end, everyone was like their canonical type, just with a bunch of inherited skills.
Oh, that's
for
interesting.
me.
The other thing was like the weapons. The weapons were so expensive, like the high level weapons, that it was like, well, I don't want to have to buy another high level weapon if I change this job. Was I just misunderstanding the system entirely?
I mean, I always eventually turned them back into their like canonical job after inheriting some skills. So other than like I think Namba,
that I don't want to do.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's like I spent enough time in the dungeons, which I actually really enjoyed, even though they're just a series of fight rooms, that like I actually never had a money problem in this game. And I assume, Kelsey, if you spent enough time on like Dondoko Island or whatever, you were just overflowing.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning of I would say like the first 4 chapters or so, but basically before there's a way to farm money like that.
Right.
I
only did that dungeon
conserving resources
twice. I didn't care about Dodonko. I didn't really get into Tsushima. I was really like side quests and mainline, and that was the stuff I was interested in, wanted to pursue.
Did you ever feel like you had to grind? Because I felt like by the end of the game, I was like, I think if I didn't do those dungeons, I would have been getting my ass kicked.
Not occasionally. It was more like with Kiryu in Japan. I was like, I did hit a point where I was like, well, I need to like quote unquote grind, but grinding is just like doing all the memories and fighting all the little hero missions.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, and his grinding works a little differently.
I had a couple fights, like side quest fights. Tomizawa's final Drink Link fight was like weirdly, I had to like level up for that. Like I had to come back to it later. And then Abina took me like 3 or 4 tries. And that one was kind of a tough fight. But otherwise I was generally okay, which I was very happy about, because when it comes to RPGs, like it's not really my primary genre for me, so I kind of am allergic to grinding anyway. Like I don't like doing that in RPGs, so I kind of try to find the balance of like doing maybe a little bit more fighting than I need to like never have to grind, and I hit that pretty well with Infinite Well.
There were definitely some. So in the previous game, spoilers for Yakuza 7, I guess, there is the Goro and not Daigo, but who's the third guy?
Dejima?
In that? Yeah, where it's like those two are this unbelievable difficulty spike where the game suddenly gets so much harder than it was. And I was worried about that with the Goro and Daigo and, kind of like the 3 fight that you have to do. But like that one, I think that was my favorite fight in the game, in that I was just like so on a razor's edge the whole time, but ultimately came out on top. Like I sometimes I felt like the characters, I don't know, it was like, it was never too hard, but sometimes I just found the fight mechanics a little more annoying. But like when it hit like it did in that, it's just like, it's so exciting, and like a character's getting knocked out and you're like, okay, I'm gonna swap them out and I'm gonna bring another character in or whatever. And like once you get access to all their kind of super cinematic moves, where like I had Nanba as like the host, I guess, and one of his best moves is he just throws a rose at someone, but it's like Nanba produces but a single rose is like what the text said, and then you like throw it and it does a huge amount of fire damage. And like, taking out Daigo Dojima by throwing roses at him was never not entertaining for me.
That's good.
I gotta say, in that last fight with Ebina, one of the things that helped the most in that fight was like a very, like, I think it's a move you have just at the beginning of the game with Nanba, which is like the foul stench. It just lowers attack and defense.
Oh, yeah, I did that.
Because he hits hard. So I was just like, if I just kind of always lower his attack and defense, like, I don't know. Sometimes some of those moves are pretty good.
I think the most excited I ever was at the introduction of a fight is when you're in that last chapter. You're like, I've seen all this game has to offer. I'm just going to fight some big dudes at the end of this. And then an enormous squid jumps out of a pool of water. And not only do you fight it, but it in a kind of move that no other character in the game has, it will swallow one of your characters, and then they're in like a different location, and you have to beat up the internals of the squid to get barfed out again. Its
spleen or whatever. Yeah.
That was one of the hardest fights in the game for me.
Oh,
actually.
yeah.
That's why I've heard
maybe
that
literally
too.
The hardest.
I did it on my first try, but then it was Abina.
I did too, but
it was just close. All right.
I was using a lot of healing items in that fight. Okay. Like I was burning through stuff.
It is one that just didn't stand out to me. It is one that just didn't stand out to me in difficulty Just for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe I just had the right job, so I got lucky or something. But in terms of like what was happening, it definitely stands out. It and the shark were both like super fun and weird.
Yeah. When the shark, when I understood that it was like, the shark is not helping the enemies, it is a third party in this fight, and you can kind of like kick them into the shark's mouth. I was like, oh baby, here we go.
That was so fun. And that was the most I thought about my positioning on the battlefield, like in a fight in that game, like I was constantly thinking about how I could be like further away from the sharks while knocking the other people as close to the sharks as possible.
And then you have, okay, we need to talk about Dwight Mendez, or Dwighta, who like is this character who's who is it? Is it Robert
Danny
Rodriguez?
Trejo.
Danny Trejo, that's right.
Yeah.
Who like shows up in the 4th chapter, is the scary guy. You beat him. Tomi, and he's really, he did some bad stuff to Tomizawa, and so Tomizawa is like really into this. Tomi makes him like pee himself, takes a photo of him, and is like, I got you, dude. Like if you ever try any of this again, I'm gonna spread this all over social media. I'm gonna make you go viral. And then Mendez just shows up again, like 5 chapters later. Tomizawa doesn't do anything, and like his weird little blackmail is like never a part of the story, and then Mendez just gets eaten by a shark.
Well, and he like references it, but like I think it's either right as that fight is starting or after he's already beaten him another time. It's like, why didn't you lead with that? Like, why are you like, hey, remember this thing?
It does. Doesn't he say something and Dwight just kind of waves it off almost for some confusing reason?
But then you do have the amazing part, and it's like I think I'm curious if this is the case for you, but who's the cold guy? Remind me his name? Yamai,
cold guy.
an all-star of this game, one of my favorite characters,
oh my God.
Even though I couldn't remember his name. And the thing where Mendez is driving off into the dark on his little boat, and Yamai's like, all that shiny jewelry. Sharks are attracted to light, and then the giant shark just like jumps out of the water and eats him.
We all know that, sharks like jewelry. That's why you don't wear jewelry in the ocean. Everybody knows that. Common knowledge.
Can we talk about Yamai's plotline? Because I think he has one of the most satisfying, just like open and shut. They kind of like they figure out his character, and he gets to do the whole thing where he is this, presented as an evil guy. He's kind of like the gang leader that Tomizawa is like bound to at the beginning of the game. You kind of gain a grudging respect to him because you learn that like he is outside the, like he's kind of trying to compete with Bryce and the gangs that already exist in Hawaii, and so he's like more respectable than them. But then his story turns into this kind of thing where it's like he was in love with like his patriarch's wife or whatever, and they kind of had an affair, and then she screwed him over, and kind of turned out that like she was not in love with him. She was just like using him to do something else. But the confrontation that they have at the end of the game where they get back to Japan, he just runs away to go to
try and get kappas.
He just kind of jogs away and they can't follow him. And he goes to the hospital where that woman is to either, it's like you don't know. It's like, is he going to confess his love? Is he going to kill her? And then he gets there and she kind of has Alzheimer's and doesn't quite remember him, and he just immediately drops the grudge that he has been holding for his whole life and kind of like comforts her. And it's just one of those like, oh man, this is so much kind of sweeter and sadder than you thought the story was going to be when it started. It really got me. And then he walks down the hallway and Kiryu's like, he thinks he's slick. Well, I think he's slick.
I also
he is
not as touching a moment, but one that really made me laugh was when Tomizawa betrays Yamai and joins Ichiban, and then like 10 hours later you see Yamai again, and Tomizawa's like, "It's me," and he's like, "I don't. What? Who are you? I don't even remember you. Like, did you do? Do we know each other?" Which I just thought was so funny. Because he just like, he was so crucial to making Tomizawa's life terrible. It's very much the Street Fighter movie. It was a Tuesday for me moment.
Yeah, I don't think about you at all. Did either of y'all have kind of like specific plot lines that really really worked for you? Maybe outside the game's overarching narrative.
Well, I mean, I think the big. I want to say the thing that was the most impactful again until the very end. It was just the moment where Kiryu tells everyone he has cancer. Like,
yeah,
that's huge. And Jacob, I told you this. I'm going to tell my sad story on the on this show now a little bit. I was starting that cutscene when my dog started getting like obviously sick. Paused the game, took her to the vet. Found out she has cancer. Oh no! And she passed away a couple days later, unfortunately. But literally, I left my Xbox on that whole time, just dealing with all of this. When I was finally ready to come back to it, unpaused the cutscene, and I genuinely, I'm not making this up. 5 seconds later, Kiryu goes, "I have cancer," and I'm like,
"Oh my gosh!"
It's so
you didn't know before starting the game?
No,
because it was in a trailer.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I was like,
wait, does he say he has cancer in the trailer?
Yes, he said.
I have learned to never watch a trailer because they just it's like they give away end game stuff in their trailers.
Which I'm not even like a huge invested in the story, right? I'm not like a big Super Kiryu fan, but watching that trailer, even I was like, that seems like a detail I didn't need to know until I played the game. But I'm sidetracking you, Kelsey. I'm sorry.
No, that's really weird, and I'm very glad I had not watched that trailer. I don't think I must have watched. I watched some trailer, but because again, there was some like shark fight I must have missed, but that I remember from the trailer.
I was so glad that was not spoiled for me because it's like
I wish it wasn't.
It's okay if you go into the game knowing it, but like that scene really hits like a truck, and it seems like the game does not want you to know what he's going to say.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, it just was a really big moment that started paying off pretty quickly after that. I mean, he starts just like kind of keeling over in the fight with Yamai, and Yamai is able to like capture him because he is suddenly like a weak, flawed man where he has never been for
when the plot deems it necessary, to be clear. Otherwise he's just like, I don't know what kind of cancer he has, but it's very much like, I am perfectly fine except for story moments where it
is kind of one of those nonsense scenes where it's like 4 people get in the car. And it's like, Kiryu, just get in the car. And he's like, I'll hold them off. And it's like, you don't need to hold them off. We have a car.
Just get them in the car.
Drive away. No, I think one of the biggest kind of like emotional oof moments in that scene is it's this thing that these games do so well, which is both absurd and like really moving at the same time, where the story of how Kiryu got cancer is bananas, where it's like he's working at a nuclear waste plant and like they start leaking and there's a guy who's being crushed, and so he like jumps in and like holds up the barrels while the guy gets away. And it's like, when it did it, I was like, this is how they're telling. It's like he couldn't just get cancer. It has to be like a superhero origin story. But one, obviously then nuclear materials are like a big part of the plot. But I think what hit me more is that he's like, I was working odd jobs. I'm not educated. Like I had to do these weird things. And it's like, you've spent so much time with Kiryu, it's like, he's a genius. He could do anything. Like you give him any job, he could do it. But in the theme of this game being like, it is really hard to rehabilitate back into society after you have like done criminal stuff. He's like, I had to take this terrible job that ultimately gave me cancer just to kind of like get by trying to not be a criminal, which I found really really moving. And then he's like, well, it could have been the nuclear waste, but also it could have been anything. It was like, I think it was the nuclear waste, Kiryu.
And that wasn't like a moment from a previous game or something, right? That was just like happened between games at some point where he was working this weird job, I guess.
No, as far as I know, that was in between games.
Okay.
But he does smoke. Could be. Could have been the cigarettes.
I also want to share. We are recording this on Thursday, February 22nd. Wednesday, February 21st. Headline from the United States Attorney's Office. U.S. Attorney announces nuclear materials trafficking charges against Japanese Yakuza leader.
Really?
Yes.
Whoa. That's hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious, but it's hilarious.
It is kind of hard to believe.
Weird. Oh my gosh.
Okay, I didn't know this game was so historically accurate. That's
as alleged, Takeshi Ebisawa brazenly trafficked material containing uranium and weapons-grade plutonium from Burma to other countries.
Oh my gosh, we're one of those countries, an island off the coast of Hawaii that you can't find by just driving a boat around, apparently.
I did love. So I thought the Bryce plot line was pretty weak. I think that overall Bryce did not do much for me. Maybe in part because his character being supposed to be like a white American guy who could not deliver an English line was pretty rough. But I did really like the whole idea of, he's like, we have this haven. Nature has given us a cure for nuclear waste, and we're going to put it all here. We're going to solve the world's problems. And then they get there, and Chitose, who's doing her like VTuber thing, is like, look at this shit. They're not even protecting it. They're just putting it, they're just stacking it in a cave, which really does feel kind of true to life of like, we don't know what to do with this. We're not protecting it well. We're just throwing it into the ocean.
Okay, so one thing about Bryce, which I would love to talk to you guys about it. And I'm wondering if it's like, did I make that up? At one point early in the game, when Bryce was still sort of the savior of humanity and a good guy, someone said that he was like really old and still seemed okay.
Yes.
But like was like had a youthful, like he just never aged. And I was like, oh, is that going to be some twist at the end that he's like got a sibling, or he killed his father and took over his man? It's like,
I thought he was going to be a monster. I thought that he was going to like turn into like a demon who had like been alive forever.
Yeah, they really alluded to him as like a cult leader, also having these kind of like mythical powers or being much older. And like, I guess, the charitable read on that is like, that is how he is kind of perceived because he's a cult leader. Like he's been able to kind of convince people or like, spread the seeds of rumors that like he's actually, quite powerful and mythical and older than, anyone could ever imagine or whatever. But like, it does fall very flat, and you have I feel like just a very regular ass fight with him at the end.
He just shoots you with like an Uzi.
Yeah. It's not very powerful, and his motivations are never they never really make more sense other than like, I'm a bad guy, and as a bad guy, I like power and money.
And killing children is very important to me. I like a story about a religious leader who is a fraud. Like that's like a fiction that I enjoy. And I was waiting for that, but like, I don't know. I would have liked that moment of like him making it suddenly coming to light that like, no, he's not magical. He's just some dude. And I feel like that never really happened. I don't know.
It is one of the things that the story does, unfortunately, where it kind of just seems like they forgot, they laid these things. My biggest one for that, and I just kind of couldn't get over it as much as I enjoyed his plot line, but it's like, okay, Kiryu's in hiding. We understand he's not really that in hiding, even in Gaiden, he is not good at being hidden. Everyone knows who he is, but there is this big thing that happens, which is like midway through his plot line, the VTuber who ruined Ichiban's life shows up, and she's like, guess what, everyone? Kazuma Kiryu is alive. Here he is. This is, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, they don't understand. The VTuber does not understand the ramifications of what they are doing, because, like, Kiryu's orphanage is going to get, like, nuked now or something. You know, like, the whole reason that he fakes his death is to, like, protect these kids. And now he hasn't faked his death anymore, and everyone knows he's alive. And, like, this is absolutely going to go terribly. And nothing happens. Like, no one. And you repeatedly then meet people throughout the rest of the game who are like, Kiryu's dead. What are you talking about? He's not alive. And it's like, didn't you see the VTuber that apparently everyone in the country watches?
Right.
Yeah, I think I finished all of the what were they called?
Like his bucket list, or his kind of
yeah.
legendary quests.
Yeah, I think I finished all of that before that plotline happened, which is maybe the, like, canonical way to do it, because you're right, otherwise it makes no sense at all. Yeah, I mean, I even felt that way in Gaiden a little bit, where, like, he's being real lax about his name and his identity and all of that stuff, and he's sure is meeting a lot of people. Yeah. And yeah, it really kind of took it to an extreme in this game, where, like, people are just calling, like, his buddies are walking around saying, "Hey, Kiryu, hello Kiryu, beat my friend Kiryu." And then every once in a while, when the plot remembers, it's like, oh, by the way, you shouldn't be calling him that. Like, you need to, but it's like, it's so random. It is not consistently applied at all. And yeah, I mean, the only Daidoji, like, thing that happens to kind of throw a wrench in this is, like, your handler dies, as well as, I think, basically the entire Hawaiian office. It's named Hanawa, is that?
Yes.
Something like that. Who was, I mean, fantastic in Gaiden. And you know, and they kill him off in this game, but that's not, like, this is a giant shadowy organization. Like, that one guy dying should not be the, like, it's fine now. You know, like, it wasn't like it was just that guy. Yeah,
maybe
they really
was like a job they just threw at him. They were like, just take care of the Kiryu thing, you know, like, that's all you do.
I'm
like,
the Kiryu guy.
Yeah, and then when he dies, they're like, it just becomes like a branch of their business that's just, like, forgotten. You know, like,
and it's like,
keep sending paychecks by accident. You know,
I don't remember if it's in this game or Gaiden that they reference it, but it's like they paid like $60 million for. Or it might be like $600 million for Kiryu. Like, it is this unfathomable amount of money, and it's like, you seem to not, you're letting this guy get into, like, street fights constantly. I think you should protect your investment a little more.
I do want to talk about I liked him a lot in Gaiden. I already forgot his name. We just said it.
Hanawa.
Okay, that whole sequence was maybe the most impactful of the whole game to me, honestly, in terms of, like, pure plot moment stuff.
Yeah,
where it's revealed that Chitose is the VTuber. She's been the VTuber all along, which, like, they seed a little bit, but still totally caught me off guard, which might have been my whole, like, I'm not one that really, when I'm, like, watching a movie or playing a game like this, I'm not a big, like, I'm going to try to predict what's happening. Like, I just like to let things happen and react to them. So maybe
I mean, they only hint that, like, something is up. They hint that, like, Chitose is, like, acting weird and, like, probably, you know, betraying in some way, but we don't really know, you know,
she was working for Mendez, so we know that she had, like, kind of a seedy past.
She has, like, one phone. I agree. I guess I'm just trying to sort of, like, get ahead of the comment that was like, I know it was Chitose all along. I didn't,
for what it's worth. I knew something was up, but that's it.
Yeah, and then Eiji Mitamura, the guy in the wheelchair, him sort of having the twist, which was a little mustache twirly of where he's like, and suddenly I'm evil, was still, like, very effective for me. Like, I was heartbroken that it was Chitose. I couldn't believe that Eiji was, like, actually basically pure evil, and, like, to the point where he was, like, numbing his legs so that Ichiban would never figure out that he, you know, could walk normally. And then they killed Kiryu's handler, who was like a character that I actually knew pretty well from Gaiden. It was like one of the few instances in the game where it's like, oh, I actually know that guy's history. Like that moment was like, and honestly, for the whole game, in terms of like just pure plot, I was like, whoa, I can't believe that happened. I don't know what's going to happen next. This is crazy. They took Ichiban's mom. That girl's in danger again. Everyone who I thought was my friend was not my friend. Like it was like, favorite's not the right word, but it was like the biggest moment in the game for me, even more so than the ending. I liked that whole sequence.
Yeah, I did too. But I do want to talk about AG as a character because, boy, what like that game needed more, like 10 more hours of him to do what they were trying to do with him. Yeah. Like so he's introduced in the very beginning, again, as like a sympathetic character who's in a wheelchair, and we know that Ichiban has this past with his technically Sawashiro's son, who, you know, it's like the main villain of 7, and, you know, knows how to, like, is very sympathetic to people in wheelchairs because that's what he spent his Yakuza life doing before he went to prison.
Also, he's just a nice guy.
I mean, so, yes, but it's like a particularly effective. And, you know, this guy is very nice or whatever, and then he saves him from being robbed by the cabbie who turns out to be Tomizawa. And, you know, they like hang out for a good amount of time at the very beginning of the game. And you see them kind of develop this friendship. And then he's just not talked about at all until this moment where it turns out he's evil. And
yeah, he's like maybe hacking for them or something, but you never see him. He just is kind of like on a little laptop in the corner.
Yeah, like, come hang out. We'll figure out something for you to do. You know.
It feels kind of coincidental that he was there. For that second part in the first place, and you know, and the end of the literal end of the game is him forgiving AG in this huge way with this huge scene and everything, and it never quite makes sense to me, both with what little history they shared, and then how like just pure evil he seems to be. I mean, this is a guy, so his backstory is pretty interesting. You know, he wants revenge on the Yakuza because, you know, they
broadly the whole idea of the Yakuza.
Yeah, and because, you know, they've wronged him and everything, and all that part makes sense. But he's like a former journalist, and like he is willing to like murder a child over this and cackle evilly about it as he's doing it. Like it's very strange. I'm like, this is not. I get you hating the Yakuza. I don't understand how you make the leap from like normal human who was wrong to like, yes, I will murder this innocent child for my end goal here.
Also,
and laugh about it. Like he has no remorse about that whatsoever.
One of the most bizarre scenes in the game in terms of like what is happening here, where he's with who is the girl who's part of who's kind
Lonnie.
of the right. Yeah, so he has strapped Lonnie to, like, she's bound. She's at a wheelchair at the top of the stairs. Our Ichiban and the crew are running after her. He's like, ha ha ha, I'm evil. He pushes her down the stairs along with a bomb. And you're like, oh my gosh, she's going to fall down the stairs and the bomb's going to go off and everyone's going to die. And she goes down the stairs and like, Chitose catches her or something, but the bomb, it oh my gosh, they missed it. It's gonna explode, and then it hits the ground, back wall.
Right?
And it's actually not a bomb. But actually it is a bomb, but it's tear gas. And so then the tear gas goes off, and they all run up the stairs, and they're choking. And then AG grabs Lonnie again, and then they just leave. And it's like, why did any of that happen? Like the status quo is exactly the same as the beginning of that scene.
And that's what like makes him such a like weirdly unsympathetic character, is because like all of that was pointless and he was laughing about it the whole time. Like it was just cruel for fun, which again, if all you're after is like vengeance, why are you taking it out on a 10-year-old orphan? Like, I really don't understand this. And gleefully.
Yeah. And I think, it's like when you think about what the game is trying to do. You have like two of the major villains, AG and Abina, Bryce notwithstanding, are people who have been like irrevocably hurt by the Yakuza. You know, like they are kind of broken in the way they are because like these crime families have done things to them that are truly awful, and like, you know, they should be upset about them. And both of them, I do think, end in this fairly beautiful place where it's like the end of the Abina boss fight is Kiryu in a beautifully homoerotic moment, like both, you know, falling shirtless on Abina and like crying, like, please forgive me. Like, I am so sorry for what we have done, which is this just like, gosh, that is not how most boss fights end. And like the protagonist begging for forgiveness from the antagonist for just kind of the world that they've created.
It's very like Jesus-y. Like, it is like literally dying for the sins of the Yakuza. Like, he is taking on all of that. And and begging for this guy's forgiveness for the sins of the whole, you know, history of the Yakuza.
Yeah, and so then Ichiban's plotline, after he's done with Bryce, ends with him finding AG, who's kind of been like hiding out and is completely like disheveled. I literally didn't recognize him because he had like grown hair and whatever.
I'm embarrassed to be like, is this guy from Judgment or something?
Yeah, but he was like Achan, and I was like, okay, I get it. But has, again, it's like, in, you know, if you were just looking at the scene, a beautiful scene where he was like, I will help you. You know, you have done nothing but be cruel to me, but like, I believe that all people should be redeemed. And so this last, you know, the kind of music video that ends the game is like, he's carrying AG to the police station so he can turn himself in, and people are
his
like,
ankle's broken or something, right? Isn't that
yes,
what happened?
I think so. And people are like throwing shit at Ichiban, essentially being like, why are you helping this guy? He's a criminal. You're a criminal. Like, you don't, you know, whatever. And Ichiban's like, it's fine. I am happy with this. I know I'm doing the right thing, so they don't bother me. And like, both of them are, you know, Kiryu and Ichiban, trying to make good on the damage that the Yakuza has done over the course of their lives, even if they're not responsible for it. And I love that. But like, we hadn't seen AG in like 20 hours, you know, like he just disappears from the plot. And so it kind of, it feels like they're wanting to wrap up a theme that they didn't quite, they didn't seed enough through the rest of the game.
Yeah. And I mean, on top of that, I think like the only positive interactions they had was like literally the beginning of the game, where they have, you know, a nice like few nights of friendship or whatever, but it just, it feels like this feels like a random guy to do all of this for, given how little history they share.
Yeah.
I don't know how, like, I think he just needed to appear more in the game, and we needed to like, and he needed to be slightly more sympathetic of a character and not like gleefully torture a child. But you know, it
would be nice if he was like not a party member, but like that person off to the side who like roots for you. You know,
yeah, because they did that
doesn't
once.
Like 2 fights or 1 fight or something like that.
If he was that like the whole time, like they wouldn't even had to write new dialogue or have extra cutscenes with him. It's just having him with you for all those fights and rooting you on, I feel like could have helped significantly.
Yeah, you know, and it is the magic of Ichiban that this guy has done nothing to deserve his forgiveness, and he's going to do it anyway. You know, like that's
for sure.
Kyle, do you remember the Arrested Development episode?
Yes.
With
I'm assuming yes. Please continue.
With I can't remember who the woman is, but it's like someone who's like pregnant, and it's like, you know, Michael's son, and then it's actually not Michael's son, and she keeps being like, how are you actually this good of a guy? And he's like, yes, I am. I felt like this whole game was people telling Ichiban like, no, you can't actually be this good of a guy. And he's like, sorry, bro, that's just who I am.
That's just who I am. It's me, Jason Bateman. I will say, like, on the other side of that, Chitose's stuff, kind of going alongside it, I think was way more effective in terms of like, look, I betrayed you guys and I'm sorry, and Ichiban being like, I don't care, and her being like quick to like accept that and like do everything she could to help. Like, I thought that was well done, because you have a much more developed relationship with her. And like, I was like kind of in the mindset of like, I don't care, I need Chitose back on my team. Like, yeah. I'm guessing her back was up against the wall, and that's fine. You know, like she's betrayed me multiple times, but damn it, we're gonna be friends, and she's gonna remove her braids and become a different person for the second half of the game. And I am totally cool with that, you know?
It is just before the scene that I complained about where they throw the bomb down the stairs, but the scene where they're in that club and they're like, oh, AG, he's too far away, we can't reach him, and Chitose just shows up and is like, and like points a gun at him and is like, let her go, is so badass. I was cheering.
Yeah.
That club is so funny too, because you walk by it a bunch, and like every time I walked by it, I was like, something's going down there later. I don't know what it is, but
that
we're going in there.
Too art designed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved her arc so much. She's such a fantastic character, and I think that they placed moments like that, like the, you know, just showing up and holding a gun to AG like so perfectly, so that you would just naturally agree with Ichiban, like you said, Kyle. Like, you'd just be like, yeah, like, you're clearly a good person here. Like, I forgive you. You're trying to make this right, and like you are succeeding in working on making this right. And that happens multiple times in her story arc. I mean, even when you are in District 5 and you're about to go fight Dwight, like she's supposed to lead you to a trap, and she doesn't, and she helps you fight him. You know, like there's like several times where she's like about to betray you, and then is like, no, you know what? I can't do it.
Yeah.
And the way her story ends too, with her just like exposing her own very powerful family, and exposing herself as the VTuber, and you know, just all of that was beautiful. I love Chitose as a character.
He was probably maybe my favorite, honestly. Like Tamizawa, I like his arc a lot, but it kind of wraps up pretty early.
Yeah.
Even with and if you do the drink link early, which I ended up doing, like your Tamizawa is kind of like all set, but Chitose's arc, I feel like, goes throughout the course of the whole game, like even up to the end of her, you know, like you said, like throwing her family under the bus and broadcasting everything. So like hers, I think, was probably, as in terms of like the secondary characters, I think she was my favorite.
And also she sneaks out in the middle of the night, and Kiryu sees her like right before that, when they're all in Japan, and like, you know, I got this feeling like, man, again, like you've got some other skeleton hiding, and then it turns out it was to like confront her family and be like,
yeah,
you guys fucked up, like I'm gonna tell people. And so it was such a good moment where it's like, I think the game wanted you to think that, like, that she had something else bad cooking that you were gonna have to like see her, you know, come to terms with, and it turns out no, like
I'm looking forward to forgiving you again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But instead she was just like, no, I'm just preparing for being even cooler later.
Did y'all fill out anyone's bingo cards? Did you like finish
every
them?
single one of them?
Because I was so happy when I so it's like they're conversations you can have around the, you know, the city, where it's like you walk by like a smoothie stand, and Tomizawa was like, I've always loved smoothies, and Ichiban's like, a little gritty for me, and like they are very funny, and like I was consistently surprised. There's this one where Adachi is like, they're walking by a barber shop, and I think it's who are they with? They're with like Junji, who's talking about like, I love getting like a new cut and like always staying stylish. And Adachi's like, you know what happened the last time I went to a barber shop? The guy asked if I had anything itchy, and I said, yeah, my ass. And then they stopped talking to me. And Junji's like, I thought we could have one normal conversation. But when you fill one out completely, there's this big gold stamp that goes on it that says best friends forever. And then you get to have like an extra little scene with them. And like, you know, with Chitose, you like go and watch fireworks together. And it's so good.
The scenes are so funny too, because they're presented in this very like romance visual novel kind of way, where it's suddenly first person and you have this like happy little glowy border around it, and all of your, you know, they ask you a question and all of your choices are very, I mean, they're not always like romantic, but like all your choices are pretty sweet. It's like, yeah, you know, I'd love to cook for you sometime or whatever. Like, it's just fun. A very, and then you take a commemorative photo together that goes on your little best friends forever page, and it's very cute. It's just a very cute way to do that.
I really came to love Adachi by the end of this. I mean, he was a great party member in 7 as well, but it's like truly just like Ichiban's boy. You know, I was like, whenever me and Adachi are hanging out, things are cool. He gets me, I get him. And like having that first person cutscene with him where we're just like, hey man, let's travel together. Like, let's go on a trip. We would love that. I was like, I am so there. I feel the same way.
That's so funny. Similarly,
game that's just a boys' trip for.
Like they're different, but Kiryu's sort of memories in Japan like are kind of reminiscent of those bingo cards a little bit, where it's just like go here and get a little tidbit, and a lot of them just washed over me. I don't know who these characters are, and they weren't really effective, but I particularly liked the ones that were like referencing the zombie Yakuza game, and like
and Ishin,
and Ishin,
he's like, I had a dream that I was like in a different era, and I appreciated those. And then there was one where you talk about Sega arcade machines, and he goes off on this little like fourth wall breaking, like, Sega's done some really good games. These Sega people really know what they're doing.
Yeah, we should watch out for them. It seems like they're really good at this.
We should all play the Crazy Taxi live service game they're going to make.
But I thought that was funny, of just having Kiryu being like, wait a second, Sega's awesome.
Yeah.
Kelsey, I have a question about the Kiryu stuff for you, which is I wanted to see his last like scene where you go to Date, and Date, like, you know, they tell you, hey, it's going to be with Haruka, you know, like they're like, this is going to be a big deal. I found the final grinding to get to that. I didn't understand how I was supposed to do it, where it was like, it was so far off, and I had like already seen all the memories and stuff. So I feel like it was like the only things I had left to do were like, okay, you got to get 20 home runs at the you know, batting cages, and then you'll get your spirit up a little. But like, I just couldn't grind his kind of skills up enough anymore.
Were you doing the hero, part-time hero stuff?
Yeah, I was. It felt like the gap was too big.
I did not struggle with that very much. It was a little bit of a grind, but all I had to do was like most of the part-time hero stuff. Weird. So it was just a bunch of battles for me.
I did all the part-time hero stuff and every memory I could find, and I still wasn't able to do that last one.
Huh. What did I do that made Kiryu so strong?
I don't know if you get points in Kiryu's thing for doing like the island stuff.
I don't think so.
I don't know, but I was like, I really wanted to get there, and I ultimately just watched the scene on YouTube because I was I don't want to spend the time, and I know you don't actually like get to talk to them.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So some of Kiryu's life links, is that what they're called? Something like that?
I think so.
Which are the basically you meet Date-san at a bar, and he's like, I'm arranging for all the people from your past to like slowly parade in one at a time so you can see them.
They will suddenly be at the same restaurant as you.
Yeah, because again, you know, it's not that important that you're dead, even though like we just had an entire game where the whole plot was it's important that you're dead. Yeah, I mean, I actually thought they were really well handled. I know some people, and again, I might feel different if I had played every single Yakuza game leading up into this one, and I was like, I need to see Haruka again. Like, I need to see that resolution. But I actually liked the way they handled it, where like he did end up meeting some of them, kind of, but like mostly it was him just kind of getting to hear
He
that
just got
he
to
had
stand
had this.
outside. Yeah.
Yeah, but he got to hear that he had this like good impact on people's lives, and even the people's whose lives he thought he had kind of ruined, or at least like made worse in some way, or introduced drama to. Everyone just had nice things to say about him. They were like, like, yeah, this thing was hard, but like, I'm so glad I went through it with Kiryu. Like, that guy rules. He taught me so much. I'm a better person now. And just him getting to like hear that while not, like he is not supposed to be there. So they're not like saying it performatively in front of him or anything, I think was, I thought it was really impactful, and I actually really liked the way it was handled.
Yeah, no, it was kind of like a bunch of mini Gaiden endings, because it's like the Gaiden ending is like a nuclear bomb of emotion, and these were kind of giving a little taste of that, and I thought it was great. And then, I mean, you do ultimately, there is a thing where like the Daidoji kind of catch up with you, right? Or they beat up Date and they're like, you're not supposed to be doing this. Don't you understand? He's supposed to be dead. Which I did like that was kind of brought back in.
Yeah.
Okay. We could talk about this forever. I think there are some sub stories that I really want to talk about. The first one is, and Kelsey, we mentioned this on the podcast. The one about the guy who wants to make it snow, I think is kind of everything that this game does well in one.
The series does well.
Yeah. The whole thing. So it's like you are walking past a frozen ice spot and you just see this guy buy a big unflavored frozen ice, throw it in the air, and then it just falls back down on his head. And he's like, ugh. And, Kiryu talks to him and you find out he's doing this because his wife is very sick and she just wants to see it snow like it, snowed during their early romance or something. And they live in Hawaii and it never snows. And so he's trying to get something to snow. And so you kind of help him out, but you can't find anything to do it. And you're just like, sorry, dude, be nice to your wife. I'm sure she'll appreciate it. And then later, completely unrelated, it seems, there's a woman pushing a stroller down an escalator.
This freaking game.
The stroller rolls down the escalator and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to stop it. And then the stroller goes on truly like a remote control car is just like swerving across the entire city, or like Baby's Day Out. It's like crawling across like construction sites, and you eventually stop it. And it's the adult man wearing the diaper from the Yakuza 7 sub story. And you talk to him for a while, and then you find out that the stuff in their diapers emulates snow. And so the final part of it is like all those dudes in their diapers on a roof just throwing it off. And so the guy and his dying wife get this like last snow shower. And I mean, Kelsey, you said you cried, right?
I literally cried because it was such a touching scene between him and his wife, where he's just like, you were so wonderful and so beautiful. I just wanted to I wanted you to be able to see this again. And she's like, oh, like I've had a lifetime of happiness with you. And like, this is so beautiful. And you're my Prince Charming or whatever. Like it was just the sweetest moment between like a man and his dying wife. And yes, and all came about because some guys were throwing diaper materials off of a rooftop.
Yeah.
And they're on the roof and they're like, boss, what happens if we run out? And he's like, we'll use what's in our own diaper. We gotta do this. And then it's like when it finishes, like 3 of those guys are naked and they just like collapse from exhaustion because they were working so hard to make it snow.
That's absurd. Yeah. No, my daughter saw that sequence and it was like perfect because she was just like, what is this game? And I'm like, this is what the game is. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's
what the game does best.
This is game design. This is good video gaming.
Are there any particularly sub stories? Kelsey, I want to hear what happens. What is like the story that happens with the island? Because I saw like the pirate and whatever, but like, does that turn into something?
So I still haven't gone back and done like a 5-star island. Mine was getting pretty close to 4 stars, but not quite there by the time I had stopped playing it. So I don't know what the like ultimate thing is, but yeah, there's essentially this island that used to be a resort, and it's completely trashed and been taken over by the washbucklers, and they're just pirates that pile trash on this island. I still don't really understand their motivations, but they pile all their trash on this island, and so you're trying to kind of clean it up, and meanwhile they're like, hey, you can't get rid of our trash pile, like we need this trash pile. So as you're cleaning it up, they're kind of coming in and fighting you and stuff, but you're clearing out areas one at a time. You're able to kind of like rebuild the resort in these areas, and then you just kind of keep incrementally clearing out the trash, clearing out the wave of pirates. I don't know if they go away completely once you hit 5 stars, if you've like beat them off for good, but like when as you're going about the island stuff, you may occasionally just have a random pirate invader that comes in like while you have guests, and you have to go take care of that. There's also like a little farm thing that opens up where you can grow some materials, and you use your Sujimon for this, by the way. So they grow materials, you can train them, they can get more like of the building materials and that sort of thing, and then wild animals will go and attack that, and you have to fight those off, but using Sujimon instead of like yourself. It's a surprisingly deep little like side I don't want to call it a mini game because it's really not mini. Like it's a whole entire thing over there. But I had a lot of fun with it. It's very strange because they're going for kind of like an Animal Crossing, design your island kind of thing. But you also have guests who come and show up, and they all have kind of their own like particular tastes and stuff. So if you want some of the like best guests to show up, you might need to design it in a certain way that satisfies that. And then, unlike Animal Crossing, it's not like you're not building a bunch of like really cutesy stuff. It's like construct an entire building that's like a ramen shop or like a smoke shop or something like, a karaoke bar. So you're really building like you're building buildings more so than you are putting like decorations on the ground. But I don't know, I was having a pretty good time with it by the end. You can unlock, I think it's in the dungeon area, you can buy plans to make like a golden statue of Kiryu and Majima.
Yes, I did see
so
those.
I got,
Oh, really?
so I got those, and I put some golden statues of them on my island, and like those are very popular with the visitors. So yeah, I think like I genuinely might go back to it just to kind of keep playing and see what happens at the 5-star level, because I was having fun with it. But it definitely, it very much takes you out of the main game, and there's not like I feel like you're either playing that for a couple hours straight or you're playing the actual game. There's not a whole lot of like going back and forth, because you can actually only access it when you are doing an Ichiban thing. I kind of thought that this game would just let you switch back and forth, like, GTA 5 style, like, okay, I want to play with this guy now. But it doesn't. It's just like chapter specific. So like right now, you're doing the Kiryu stuff, and it's like, well, I can't play the island even if I want to. So that made it a little bit more difficult to enjoy. But I think it was cool. I thought that and the Sujimon stuff was very well done. And not at all like, you don't need to have played it at all, but like I thought that they were good.
I like the story conceit of that island too, where Chitose's like, you shoot a video, and Chitose's like, I gotta edit it, so I'll see you later. And then like you could spend like weeks over on that island, and then by the time you get back, she's like, hey, I finally finished. Like, it's not like, where have you been? She's like, oh, you got back just in time. I've been working on this video for 2 months or whatever, which is just funny.
I was so thrilled to see that the giant Roomba was back, which is a plot point in 7, where there is a kind of mad scientist who's creating a big Roomba to clean up the city, and it goes crazy and you have to fight it. But I was even more glad to see that it's like, so you do that plot line, you end up fighting it. The professor's like, oh no, I think I was having a dream last night where I was muttering like this whole city is trash and the Roomba must have heard me. And so then it's like trying to like destroy everything. But then much later, if you do that quest, there's a different sub-story, completely, like a different plot line that pops up where this woman is like, I saw a UFO and no one believes me. They all think I'm crazy, but here, I saw the UFO.
And it took my chicken.
It took my chicken, and then she shows you, she's like, I got a photo of it, but it's like a selfie of her with the UFO in the background, and Ichiban's like, why did you take a selfie? She's like, I just panicked, which is very funny. But funny. So then you do that story, and it turns out, of course, that the UFO is the giant Roomba, that it has like learned to fly and is running around and like abducting stuff, and so you beat it up again, you have another fight against it, and then when it ends, they're all walking off, be like, wow, what if aliens really existed? And just in the background of that scene, there was like a cow being picked up off the ground by a different mysterious light.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't finish that one, so that's funny. I like the film director who is just trying to put you in danger for the film and doesn't like CGI, which is like, it's just fun as a person who likes film and stuff like that. But I also like that he's always just like, we'll just throw some pillows down. You'll be fine. And Ichiban's like, you got to do more than pillows, man. But then that overlaps with the side quest about the guy who's like borderline racist, like obsessed with Japanese culture and like keeps trying to
that guy is so funny.
Well, the other, which is like, I like that whole side quest. I thought it was fun. And then John Ricciardi over at 84play shared that apparently that character's tattoos on his arm, which are in Japanese, read mosquito coil and parent teacher student meeting.
Yeah.
Which is just, I love that. Like, I love that little, because like that's never surfaced. You don't know that in the game. It never throws a subtitle on those, but it just makes it all the funnier how ridiculous that character is.
That's that scene where you try to play darts and you lose, and he's like, okay, so now you're gonna do the Japanese thing and commit seppuku, right? And Ichiban's like, what are you talking about?
But of course, it ends in a moment of Ichiban like connecting with the guy and being like, look, man, you gotta understand that people are people, we're not where we're from. And and then the music plays and you're like, you're right, Ichiban, let's forgive this guy.
Yeah, and so then the way that it crosses over with the movie director guy is like that Japanese guy has a different guy who's bullying him for like liking Japanese movies, and then eventually you help him by putting him in contact with the stunt director guy. That side quest has some of my favorite lines of dialogue where it'll just kind of like shift from absurdity to profound so quickly, or the director saying, shut your damn flip-flaps. This is a movie and that means real cars and real explosions. And then his like next dialogue line is, I mourn the loss of the real in a world whose soul is slowly vanishing in the name of convenience. And it's like, oh man, firing on all cylinders.
That's great. Yeah, I like that whole side quest was funny.
I was just very excited that there was a cute bird in Ichiban's hair. I really wish I could have kept him the entire time. It's honestly
he's in your house. Like he's living in your house or whatever.
Yeah, but I want him in my hair the whole time.
Yeah, I understand.
Honestly, that storyline wasn't all that interesting. It was he finds a little bird, like a bird kind of lands on him, makes a nest in his hair because he's got that crazy hair. And then he's like, okay, I guess we gotta like get you something to eat, find your mom. And then it turns out his mom is like a rare bird that's being poached, and you beat up some poachers. Yeah. But then this tiny bird and his mom just go live in the bar with Nancy and Olivia. That was another really fun, stupid story where it's like your crawfish is in love with a snail or with a hermit crab, and you have to like save this hermit crab over and over again from people who want to take its shell. It's very, I really like the stupid like animal sub stories in these games.
The bird one has a line where it's like the poachers are trying to get it, and Ichiban's like, no, this bird's gonna stay in my hair no matter how much it squawks, pees, or shits. Another one where I was like, I cannot believe what I'm watching is there was the guy who had like the zoo or the circus from the previous game where all the animals kept getting out, and he wants to do it again, and just coincidentally there are two defunct like big earth movers on the beach, and they're like, it's fine, they won't operate because we took the batteries out, so unless anyone put like a battery in, but that would never happen. And then the guy with the animals is holding two electric eels, and he trips, and the electric eels fly into the battery slots of the earth movers, and then you have to fight them.
Then you fight giant construction equipment powered by eels. The sub stories in this game are fantastic.
I feel like we should wrap up. I mean, if there's anything else you want to talk about, we can. But Akane is one of the weirder parts of this game, I think, in terms of story stuff, where the whole motivating idea for Ichiban going to Hawaii in the first place is his mom is there. Like his mom, who he has never met and was presumably dead, is actually alive and living in Hawaii, and Sawashiro wants him to go visit her. And then you do, and you meet her, and you have a couple really nice scenes with her, and then the game kind of forgets about her.
Yeah, that was very strange to me. I mean, because you spend, several chapters just kind of chasing her down, because everyone is chasing her down, all these gangs and everything. You know, they're all trying to find Lonnie, and she's protecting Lonnie. And yeah, I mean, I thought the scene with them was sweet. I thought it made sense how kind of awkward it was. I mean, these are two people who, you know, she knew she had a son out there somewhere and I think said she had been kind of following what he was up to a little bit. He didn't even know his dad was Arakawa until all that recently, you know, so like he couldn't have even had an inkling of who his mom even conceivably was until that moment, let alone that she was alive. So he's just kind of like, you're just kind of some old lady to me, but I guess you're my mom, and like, here's some ashes from the guy you loved a long time ago, you know, like, but the game really does just kind of forget about her after that. It's like you have that sweet scene, and then she's off the plot.
Not having an ending scene with her is pretty unforgivable. I just, you know, it's like when I was thinking about the end of the game, I was like, they didn't talk at all at the end. Feels really like not good. That I just want some closure on that. But the game does those sunset by the ocean scenes so well. They are so beautiful, and they like know it and put a lot of scenes there. And like that scene where he was like trying to come to terms with this relationship with her, I thought was really lovely.
Yeah, and I just the way both her and Lonnie kind of wrap up, it's just sort of this like footnote at the end, you know, like the other party members are just kind of like, you know, and she's gonna become the new sage, and Akane's there with her, and it's like, what? I mean, the whole time I thought the plot was a little weird, that like, why is this 10-year-old actually a threat to this all-powerful cult leader? Like,
right.
It is, if he's a cult leader, the people who, you know, see him as a god are not just going to be like, oh, there's a 10-year-old that's the real one? Like, I'm just going to abandon you now.
And obviously, she should have actually had supernatural powers, and then she could have proved that she was real.
There you go. That she was actually 150 years old.
You guys, I mean, I wouldn't have really wanted any of like magic in the game, though, right? I mean, like, I don't.
It just would have made more sense.
They should not have introduced the idea that there might be.
I agree with that. Yeah, but no, if she suddenly was throwing kamehamehas at the end or something, I think I would have checked out. But
that's only for battle. Okay. Is there anything else that we have? Well, we didn't talk about what happens to Kiryu. Which I feel
that's
like
because
is
it's
kind
a big
of
old
important.
question mark. Right? He's not dead.
He's not dead, which guys, kill Kiryu. Like, come on.
This game was like a funeral for Kiryu.
I think I literally said that on the podcast and then backtracked and was like, wait, I don't know if he dies. But like
that's funny.
the whole thing was this giant funeral. It was like wrap up all of your nostalgia, hit on all the major beats, all these moments you've shared with him throughout the years, give him this like incredible, like literal Jesus dying for your sins moment at the end. It really just feels like someone was like, we gotta make another game though, so he's gotta stay. Like, kill Kiryu. He's done. There's nothing else for him in this world. He has accomplished everything, and it would have ended so beautifully if
he had the Ichiban conversation of "I'm old, you're new." You know,
like he's like I'm the past, you're the future.
Like I liked that scene, but I was just kind of like, yeah, no, you didn't really need to spell it out, but thank you.
It's like I really think it's like I'm like, okay, if they never make him playable again, maybe I'm okay with it, because it's like the ending is like he has accepted treatment for his cancer, which he was not getting, and so the last time we see him, he's in a wheelchair. He looks pretty like thin, but he's alive. You know, it's like, okay, this is what, you know, being in treatment for cancer looks like. But if in the next game he's just back to like punching guys, it will feel kind of like, what was the point of like all this send off that I did? I just wish they were a little more ballsy with letting him go.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, that would have had to be the whole ending, right? Like all the other characters celebrating him, like at a funeral or something. It would have had to be, you know, what that scene in Endgame, right? Like they would have had to put a lot of effort into that to make it worthwhile. But I wish they had. You know, I would have rather had that than Ichiban carrying the guy to the police station. You know.
Go
ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I don't know what else they could do with him where I wouldn't be mad about it. Like I cannot conceive of more story for Kiryu that is not either like just kind of pointlessly sad. Like, I mean, I guess they could just let him slowly die of cancer, but that feels really unsatisfying when you had this beautiful Jesus ending.
Yeah.
And like, but yeah, if he, again, like you said, if he gets up and just starts punching guys again, it's like, why am I ever supposed to truly care about this character when he's like, that pushes him into the, like, he's not real. Like, he's extremely not real at that point.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think we did all still really like this game, and I want to end by talking about maybe my favorite scene in the game, certainly my favorite Kiryu scene, which is when they are singing karaoke at the bar. He's finishing his song, looks over, sees that the guys, they're not even looking at him. They're just looking at their phones and talking amongst themselves. He goes over and he's like, well, guess I wasn't performing well enough for you. And then the karaoke is just like, okay, next song, someone take over. And Kiryu's like, guess I'll do this one too. And then just runs up and starts singing the Breaking the Law song, which is like my favorite song in the karaoke minigame. And everyone's like around him and jumping and cheering him on. I was like, this is the game. You know, just scenes like this are so perfect.
It was.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was very toddler-like to me, or like in a good way. I mean, where he was like pouty, like no one's paying attention to me. Let me try again, you know. Like,
yeah, and I thought, you know, while a lot of the Kiryu friendships on his side were a little like, you know, these are people who have just not known him for very long, so it was a tiny bit forced with the like power of friendship stuff at the end. But the like very clear like reverence and maybe even a little bit of a crush that Seong-hee has on him was very, very sweet the whole time. Like, she's trying to keep her cool as like, no, I am the boss lady of like this entire district. Like, I am cool and collected and I never lose my cool. And like, she just keeps kind of losing her cool around Kiryu and being like, oh my god, he talked to me. Oh my god. That part is really cute, and I loved their entire like drink link stuff where Kiryu kind of steps in to help her, but without making it seem like he is helping her at the end. You know, he puts on the mask and is like trying to be like, no, you're the boss. Like, I'm just here to support because I think you're a really good boss.
So that's it. Yakuza or Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. A
great game.
A very long game, a very good game. Some of my favorite writing, I think, all year, and some of my favorite characters in a video game.
Oh, we didn't even talk about how good the writing and like some of the American stuff was in Hawaii, where you get some good fighting criticism there.
The localization of this game is so good. It makes everything else I've ever seen localized like retroactively seem worse. You know, I watch things in Japanese now and I'm like, why aren't these subtitles as emotionally communicative as the Yakuza subtitles are? But that's it, everyone. Thank you for watching our Max spoilers. Stick around for the deepest dive on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which will be starting this weekend with just the demo. So even though the game is not out yet, you can play the demo and write in, and you can listen to it if you're at the $5 tier on Patreon on your podcast feeds. Kelsey, Kyle, thank you for sharing in the exploration of this game with me.
Thanks for hosting.
Oh, yeah. Jinx.
Jinx.
Did you know that you can more than double the amount of podcasts from MinnMax every single week by supporting us at the $5 tier on Patreon? You don't have to listen through the browser or anything dumb like that. You'll get access to a private RSS feed if you support us on Patreon. You put it in your favorite podcast app, and then bam, you can listen to our weekly bonus podcast Party Chat, the podcast versions of The Deepest Dives, MinnMax interviews, Max spoilers, and you get the MinnMax Show podcast a day earlier than everybody else. So please help support independent games media. Head over to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's.